Hi everybody, I am recording this video on Halloween morning. I don't normally record my math videos dressed up as a math referee, but today that's what we're going to be doing. So this video is going to cover adding and subtracting fractions that use integers. So that means we're adding and subtracting fractions and we're mixing in some negative numbers while we're solving that problem. Now that also means though that we're not actually doing anything new in this video. We're going to be combining some of the skills together that we learned in 5th and 6th in the beginning of 7th grade and combining them together into one new skill. So while we're solving these problems, there's really 4 major steps that we want to make sure that we are doing to be successful. So anytime we're working with integers, step 1 is the estimation or the strategy. Are we adding 2 positives? Do we have 1 positive and 1 negative? Do we have double negatives? What's the strategy here? Second step is the same as anything when you're adding or subtracting fractions. We need our fractions to be the same size. Many times that's called a common denominator, but it just makes sure your fractions are the same size or the bottom of your fraction is the same on both in order to use the traditional algorithm. Step 3 then is simplify. Sometimes at the end of your problem you'll have like 6 over 4 and you would need to simplify that to 3 over 2 in order to have the final answer, which needs to be both a mixed number and an improper fraction. So let's do an example and see what this looks like in practice. So our first problem, let's pull up my notes here, we're going to start with only positives. So we're going to have, and I'm going to do a color here. Let's go blue. So we have 3/4 plus 2/3 as our first fraction. Now in this case, we look at the numbers. We have a positive and a positive. So our strategy is that we're going to be making a bigger number than what we started with. We're just going to add these numbers together. However, I need a common denominator, and there are an infinite number of options, but I know from using the least common multiple of 3 and 4, I know that my common denominator that is smallest here would be 12ths. In order to turn the left fraction into 12ths, I would multiply everything by multiply everything by 3, and I would multiply everything on the right fraction by 4. That would give me 9/12 plus 8/12, which gives me 17/12. We do not need to simplify here because this is already in simplest form because 17 and 12 are relatively prime to each other, which means the only thing that can divide both numbers is 1. But then we have an improper fraction already. Now we need our mixed number. So in this case, we know that I can pull out one whole number, which would be 12/12, and then I have 5/12 left over, and therefore this problem is done and it's correct. So now let's mix in some fractions with some negatives. Grab myself a new color, and we're going to do -3/4 plus 1/4. Now, in this problem, let's look at our strategy and estimate. Well, we have a negative and we have a positive, which means if we are starting at -3 and going to the right one, we should be getting smaller than the number 3. So we are getting closer to 0 in this problem. Step 2, we need to make sure that our fractions are the same size. Well, good news. These fractions are already the same size. They already have a common denominator. We do not need to do anything else for this problem. So we simply are ready to combine, or in this case, add or subtract our numbers. So it's going to be something over 4. If we start at -3, we're going to go to the right 1. So I end at -2/4. However, -2/4 is not in simplest form. So I can divide both our numerator and denominator by 2. And in this problem, we are actually a proper fraction, so we actually don't have to convert to either of these. So in this problem, we're already done. So when we look at fraction problems, they can take different amounts of time, even though we're using positives and negatives. Sometimes that means that the problem's actually not very hard at all. So let's do 2 more quick examples if we have time. So I'm going to erase this first one. And let's do another one in this spot. We're going to switch to red here. And we have -1/5 minus 2/3. So in this problem, we have a negative minus a positive, or you could think of this as a -1/5 next to a -2/3. And in that case, that means that we are going to be creating a bigger negative number. So we're going to be going left on our number line. So we should be getting bigger as we're getting negative. So our fractions, though, are not the same size. There are an infinite number of possible common denominators, but I know the least common multiple in this case would be 15. I can create 15ths by multiplying both of these by 3. And I could multiply both of these by 5. So I'm cutting these up into 3 pieces, cutting these up into 5 pieces to create 15ths. I get -3 minus 10/15. I'm creating a bigger negative number, so I start at -10, and I go left 3, which gets off our screen a little bit, but ends at -13/15. This problem I do not need to simplify, and I do not need to convert it to a mixed number or an improper fraction, so I'm actually done with this one as well. Let's do one last problem. And we're going to try green and hope that it is easy to see on the board here. So in this problem, we have 1 2/3. Well, that's not bad right there. Minus 2 1/2. So this is as hard as it gets. We got some mixed numbers here. Well, anytime I'm working with mixed numbers, I'm going to convert that to improper fractions because in general, improper fractions are easier as we're working on any strategy. So in this problem, we would get 5/3. And this one, I would get 5/2. I have a positive minus another positive, or I have a positive next to a -5/2, which means I'm going to be going towards 0. So in this case, my number should be getting smaller, but we're not exactly sure right now from looking at this, should I be a negative or a positive? But if I look here, 1 something minus 2 something tells me that my answer should be a negative number because I'm subtracting more than what I started with. In this case, I do need my common denominator. The least common would be 6. So I'm going to multiply both of these by 2, both of these by 3. So I get 10/6 minus 15/6. Now I would subtract these two numbers together, but I start at 10, so positive 10, and I'm going to go to the left 15, which means I'm going to go past 0, and I'm going to go past 0 by 5. And so in this problem, I end up getting negative 5/6 as my answer. I do not need to simplify because it's already in simplest form. And I do not need to convert it between a mixed number and an improper because this is a proper fraction. So there you have mixing a bunch of skills together into adding and subtracting fractions with integers mixed in. Of course, if you have questions, please let me know.